Hello SPED 2010 students. So I am making this video as a separate video to talk to you about one of your major assignments. So I talked about this a little bit in our first week or two, but I wanted to draw your attention to something that will be due soon. So in this course, if you go to Module 1 and you click on Assessment Information and you scroll down, you're going to see Major Assignments. Now, as I mentioned before, and as you read in the syllabus, there are two major assignments in this course, and each assignment is worth 40 points. One of the assignments is going to be a choice that you have between either conducting an interview or it is going to be a journal article review. So what I wanted to do is take some time to go over the assignment that's due October 1st. Hopefully by now you've been working on it. But when you click on major assignments, you're going to see a table that pops up with the due date. And you'll notice is that it says interview of a parent or guardian of a child who has a child with a disability, or you can complete a journal peer-reviewed article. Now, if you chose to do the interview, you will just submit that under Dropbox. So you have a choice. You're not completing both of these. The second assignment that you're going to be completing is your co-teaching presentation plan. So I wanted to first dive into interview. So I'm going to click on interview. And remember, you're going to choose one or the other. You will not do both. So if you choose to do interview, that's what you'll concentrate on. If you choose to do the journal article review, then you will pick that one. And then that will be submitted to Dropbox. So the purpose of this interview is really to gain some insight and experience, because last week we really talked a lot about parent collaboration and partnerships and how we need to support our parents and how we can work together and they can be on our team so you can make sure the child's successful. So the purpose is for you to interview a parent or a guardian who has a child with special needs. And what this does, it impacts you and your thought process and insight into what it's like for the parent. And this is really going to help you as a future educator. So I do have some instructions. I'm only going to hit the highlights because I want you to read this. I'm not going to go through everything. But there's two parts to this interview. The first one is going to be the actual interview itself, and then the second is going to be reflection. Okay, so some instructions I have for you is this interview cannot be conducted with a relative of yours, okay? And it must be with a child who has an IEP or an IFSP, like a family plan, and receives resources in the school system. It cannot be a relative of yours, and we cannot break confidentiality. So whenever you choose to do the interview, you need to make sure to let them know that you will not be using their name, so you won't use the family name or given name. So you can use a pseudonym, make a name up, or you can just use initials, but you are not to include the names inside the interview. And you have to get permission. So what people do is they normally will either do the interview and conduct it over the phone, you can conduct it in person, you can do a video chat, do it on Teams or Zoom, whatever you need to do. So I have given you questions here. You're going to answer these questions. So what I suggest you doing is, I want this in a Word format, okay? There's no word count, anything of that sort. So what you're going to do is you will copy and paste these questions inside of a Word document. And I gave you questions, so what you do is you're going to create the first section as a transcription. So when you transcribe something, you'll put the question, and then under you'll put A for answer, and you'll put in quotes what that person said. Now, they may not want to answer some of these questions. They may find that it's too intrusive. So it might be a good idea ahead of time for you to send this. That way they can become comfortable and familiar and know ahead of time what you're going to be asking them. So you will have to include the question and then the answer underneath to transcribe how the interview went. Now, some people ask if they can record the conversation, like an audio. This will help you when you're going back to make sure you put exactly what they said verbatim. Another part of it is and there's a rubric here that I included for you about how you'll be graded. On the section where you're doing the interview, make sure that you add additional questions. So if you are just asking these questions that I've given you and no further questions, then that will give you a grade of B. But if you want a higher grade or a chance at a higher grade, then you need to ask additional questions, usually 2 to 3. So what you're going to do is you could either come up with your own, or if you're stuck and you don't really know where to take this, you can use, say, AI, right? Like artificial intelligence. So you can get on ChatGPT and let that help give you or generate some questions. Now, when you do that, it's important for you to realize that whatever questions you're asking needs to be with what that child's disability is, and that will guide you towards your questions or generating questions that are related to this child's special needs. I had someone ask me, what if I have the parent I'm interviewing has more than one child with a disability? It's going to get quite long. I would like you to just concentrate on one of the children or one child in the family. Another question that I was asked this week was, what if the child is in high school but they're over 21? Well, under IDEA, children can be 20, 21 and still receive services. Like past 21, they cannot. Okay, so up to that point, say they're 19 or 20, they can still receive services. So if they're in high school and they're past that, that's fine. They do not need to be adults, so it really needs to be someone that's still in school receiving services. The next part will also be included, and you will label the first part, parent interview questions, and I try to keep this all on the same Word document. I don't want 2 separate documents submitted to Dropbox. So the second portion is your reflection. So what you're going to be looking at is these questions I give you. How did you locate them? Where did the interview take place? Discuss what the disability is or the services that the parent got. How did this interview impact your thoughts of working with children in an inclusive classroom? What is your understanding of that child's disability? Have you been affected? What insights affected by the interview? What insights or thoughts do you have moving forward? And is this going to really change your thinking in the classroom moving forward? Your actions as a teacher. So that will be your reflection. If you look up here, it says a minimum of 300 words. So I'm not really, once you get here and you start answering this, you're going to get to 300 words. But to make it a good reflection and to make sure that you are hitting all the highlights in your reflection, you need at least that much. Okay, so that will be one of your choices for your major assignments. The next choice you have is your journal article review. Now, on the course homepage, since this is an online class, normally if it's an in-person course, I will take my students to the library, and we will have the librarian teach us a class or conduct a course or a class on research and databases and how do you use them, journals, and citing sources in APA format. So since we don't have that and we didn't get to go to the library, on the course homepage, she created 2 presentations for you on database and research of how you're going to conduct the research for this, as well as how do you cite your sources. Okay, so please be sure to look at that. Even if you decided to do, say, the interview and not this, you still will have to do research for your co-teaching assignment, which will come in a separate video. So be looking for that sometime maybe in the next week. So make sure you view that. And again, it's on the course homepage, and I even sent an email out about that as well. So one thing to note when you're doing your journal article review, it has to come from a peer-reviewed journal. The one I chose from you is Teaching Exceptional Children. Okay? So whenever you're looking in this journal, you get to pick the topic that you want. Keep in mind, it does have to be related to special education. So think about something that's interesting to you or that's going to pertain to you in the classroom as a future educator, right? So if you're going to plan to teach math, maybe look at that section and how inclusion in math kind of correlate. Remember, not all articles are peer-reviewed. So whenever you are looking in your database and doing your research, make sure you click on it's a peer-reviewed article. And then again, there's a link to it. You can also go directly to the Water State Library. This is something that is addressed in the presentation that the librarian created for you, so please make sure you look at that. One of the things to also think about is when you're doing an article review, you're really critiquing it, right? So we're trying to look at articles that really look at methods and materials and supports for children who have disabilities. This can even include those who are gifted, right? And those are going to help guide our teaching and support for those students. So when you're reading the article, when you're writing about your review, I really want you to think about evaluating what the strengths are and weaknesses of what you're reading. So look at the overall content and make connections, right? So you'll look here, it says you have to use APA citations. So that's the format I want you to use. Again, there is a separate presentation that the librarian provided for you. There's also a section in the library Water State library page that has a whole section on APA formatting. So that's another source for you. So there are some guidelines on this assignment. I listed them here for you. Your review should be 2 to 3 pages, okay? That is not including like your cover page is not included in that 2 to 3 pages. So make sure it's formatted in 1.5 and it's 12-point size in Word. One thing I do want you to notice is that on your cover page, it should include this information like your name, the name of our class, which would be Intro to SPED, and the date. Then the second page would start your article review. So what you're going to do is you're going to label sections within your article. So your first section at the top, which is your second page, because your first page is going to obviously be your cover letter or your cover page. The second part at the very top is where you're going to start your review. But before you do that, I want you to reference or cite the article you're using. So here's an example of using APA for a journal that was an article found in the Journal of Teaching Exceptional Children. So that should be at the very top of your page. Then you're going to go in and start. So what you're going to do first is you're going to, in that first section, your introduction, is you're going to summarize in your own words. So I don't want you to sit there and write verbatim or copy and paste, because that's not summary, and that will be picked up when I'm reading it. So it has to be in your own words. The second section, or paragraph you want to start, is going to be 4 points you found interesting in the article. They're significant, okay? So when you're picking articles and you're doing research, it's important to think about these things. Is there enough in this journal for me to use in a critique or a review? Then the third section is going to be your critique. So this is where you're going to give your opinion of the author's work. So think about those points. Go back to what stuck out to you. What did you agree with? Maybe you agreed with some parts and maybe not. You found the other parts not useful. If you disagree, tell me why, okay? And remember, your opinion is based on your experiences you've had so far, right? Of working, if you work as a substitute or a teacher's aide, or from past classes that you've had, or theories you've studied in class, or maybe things we've learned so far in class, in this class. Then, the last section is really your closing, right? Your conclusion. And in this conclusion, you're going to list 2 examples or maybe ideas that you would like to implement from this article in your own classroom and how it impacted you moving forward. Okay, so that's really how you will close it out. So it needs to be in a Word document, as I said, and these are the guidelines you will follow. And then, of course, you have a rubric here that shows how you will be graded. Okay, so if you're doing this, please make sure you look at those presentations that the librarian provided for you. And again, it's on the course homepage. So that's due October 1st. Hopefully you've been working on this. I've talked about it in the past. This is just to kind of go through it once again to let you know what is required. And remember, you're choosing one. You're either going to do the interview or you're going to do the journal article report. It's up to you. And then you will put those in the Dropbox, or put one of them in the Dropbox. I will be sending out a separate video for the co-teaching assignment. So be on the look for that. So that should be within the next couple weeks. I'll be sending that, and I'll email you once it's on the course homepage. Alright guys, until the next video, take care.